That's 100% collective increase, which to you is worth $100,000 every day. Are you telling me my $5,000 investment is not worth the $100,000 you're going to see at the end? You can't wait for someone else to give you the answers. You've got to go and find those answers.
Today, it's my huge pleasure to introduce a veteran solopreneur. He's been a solopreneur for over 11 years. Very good credentials in sales, business development. Yousaf Khan, who is also a consultant, an independent consultant working across sales, corporate consulting, and artificial intelligence. And may I also say, performance management, human performance. A very interesting portfolio of work that he's doing as a solopreneur. And I think he's got a lot to share and a lot of value to add for you as a solo entrepreneur to learn from. And with that, Yousaf, over to you. Please start by telling us your story.
Billy, thank you so much. I'll try and keep up with the kind words that you shared there for the guys watching. So I'm 34, although I probably look 54 with the white hair, the balding, and those kind of things. These are some of the features that come along with solopreneurship for such a long time. I mean, you've obviously kept looking well, and you're looking young, and you're looking fresh, and maybe I can learn a thing or two from you as well.
And almost double your age. And mention that you're based out of London, right?
Yeah, so Halifax is a little bit further away from London. So I'm effectively Dubai and UK based kind of hybrid. So it's either the hills and the sheep and the countryside of Yorkshire in the UK, or the skyscrapers of Sheikh Zayed Road and the flashy marina. So it's complete different contrast on both sides of the world. But that's actually one of the things that brought me to entrepreneurship, solopreneurship very, very early on. So to give you some of the highlights over the last 11 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I'd say my first real step into the career ladder, like what I'd say mature career, not one of those first jobs, knocking on doors or selling windows and doors and those kind of things. But like my first real job was actually in Dubai, working for a medical laboratory in Al Mamzar 13 years ago-ish. I was young, fresh, and that opportunity initially started from sales and marketing of a new medical laboratory in Al Mamzar, which very, very quickly turned into actually, Yusuf, we know you're only 21, but we now need you to operate, manage, and run the business of our medical laboratory alongside the sales, the business development, the go to market strategy, and all of those kind of things. The really interesting thing is, me as a 21-year-old, maybe you could call this ego, maybe you could call this naive, but I, even at that point 11 years ago, saw the opportunity in front of me. And I very easily could have said, no, I've never done this before. I'm just a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. But I saw an opportunity presented to me, even at that stage. And ultimately, it was, am I going to take this opportunity and then figure out the steps to make it real and to deliver on my promises or to deliver on the things that I'm saying? Or am I almost going to hide away and think, actually, I've not been given that information. I've not been trained. Nobody's spoon fed me this in order to do this. And that was one of the things that really connected me, particularly to the ed tech and the learning and development and the skills angle, because that was the real first taste and driver for me to think there's an outcome or a goal that I want to achieve. There's a gap between where I am today and where I want to be, or the thing that I want to be able to do. I now need to take self agency to take myself on that journey and on that path, to learn the skills, to put in the reps, to understand about business, to understand the nuances around, regulations, insurance companies, consumer dynamics, advertising, messaging. There were so many things as a young kid, as I'm going to call a childish adult, that I had to learn and pick up back then and to mature very, very quickly in.
You are
Um,
calling yourself a kid back then when you were 20 something. And now we have listeners who are 20 something, and I'm sure they don't see themselves as kids. They see themselves as thriving young adult professionals.
yeah, yeah, and maybe I mean I've always been a little bit childish, even right now. If I don't look in the mirror in the morning, I still see
Yeah.
myself as that 16-year-old kid. And then it's when I see the guy in the mirror looking back at me, I think, oh wow, okay, no, I'm not a young kid anymore. Um,
Yes.
but that effectively became, I'd say, one thing that I've taken with me throughout my professional endeavors, throughout the various businesses that I've launched and run, even the support that I've helped other people with.
Yeah.
It's all kind of been back to that point where the one lesson that I think has echoed, and I think does echo for a lot of the people like us, is that the one of the core principles of being a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, even a high performer within an organization is you can't wait for someone else to give you the answers. You've got to go and find those answers. You've got to go and
Absolutely.
lay every brick on that path to build the bridge between where you think you are and where you think you want to be. One of the lessons that you teach me a lot of the times, through your wisdom and through your experiences, you never actually know. I'm going to reword this. You only know whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision after it's happened. But when you're walking that journey, when you're taking those first few steps, you've just got assumptions, ideas, maybe a dream, maybe a wish. Every step you take then becomes almost a reinforcement of, are you getting closer to this? Are you headed in the right direction? Have you taken a wrong turn and you need to pivot or you need to adjust? But it's all down to one step after another, time after time, putting in those reps, in order to get to that vision or that goal that you're trying to get to.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit where you are now, what you are busy, just so everybody knows what you are doing, what you specialize in, and you're welcome to use this a little bit of a sales pitch as well, so people can know who they can contact for what.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you so much. So the primarily for the last 11 years, I've been a performance consultant within the corporate learning and development and skill space. So this could be everything from helping internal learning and development and HR teams make sure that they're solving real business problems and actually helping to drive performance rather than just delivering training or education. Worked with some, I've had the honor of work with some huge global household brands, everything from HSBC, Unilever, small up and comers that are now big brands like Gymshark before they were well known and those kind of things. So I've been awarded the opportunity and the privilege to work with some amazing brands, amazing companies at very different styles, organizations, areas, logistic. It doesn't really matter what the company is. And one of the big things was always around everything ultimately comes down to performance. Doesn't matter what area of the business is in, doesn't really matter what um, flavor of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship you want to do. Doesn't matter whether you're a marketing professional, whether you're an educator, whether you're a training provider, whether you're a consultant or a plumber or an electrician. Everything comes down to your ability to perform at the craft that you've chosen and deliver a positive experience to whatever is around your circle. So be it that's a customer directly, an internal stakeholder, a peer, or someone that you're working with, it all comes down to your ability to perform. And I think that's one of the things that rings true across kind of entrepreneurship and solopreneurship. One of the things that has led me to over the last 11 years is my work has naturally had to evolve. And I've had to keep myself at the forefront of what's going on in society, in the world, economically, technology advancing with AI and those kind of things. What that has now meant is that my skill set or my proposition as a business owner, as a performance consultant or as a performance engineer, even within certain businesses, has to now adapt. if I'm running the same playbook I was running 3 years ago, 5 years ago, before AI became, hit the market, performance isn't the same. So now it's around how do you raise the bar for human performance with AI? The old playbook for companies used to be to grow a company or to scale a company. You've kind of got two main levers at your disposal. One is cash and capital and income, and that's where kind of a lot of the VC-backed startups come from, and they raise millions and millions of dollars in some cases in order to get them off the ground and in order to give them that runway. The other lever attached to that has always traditionally been human resource, so people within a business. You need to hire people, and the kind of very rough kind of back of napkin math that we all hope rings true is for every one person that we bring to the business, that's going to add 1 unit of output out of the business, which is mean that our revenue or profits or growth are going to scale incrementally, to that same proportion. The new playbook for the future, though, is every one human you bring into the business is now armed with a suite of tools augmented around them. So the old playbook of one human equals one output is actually now one human should equal 10 outputs or 15 outputs. And that's the really exciting thing for me as a my background in performance is now how do we exponentially increase the value, the throughput, the ability, and the capabilities of humans with AI, with better technology, with better systems, with better infrastructure, and those kind of things. I've got a lot of friends in the sports industry, and one of the funny distinctions that one of my friends gave me when I was explaining this to him was, so what you're saying is AI is basically a performance enhancing drug. It's like steroids. It's like, testosterone and growth
I
hormone.
like that. I like that.
And that to me was just such a wild, like, just yeah, it actually is. It's
Yes.
AI is the performance enhancer. Um,
Okay. So a little bit earlier, you used the phrase you were afforded the opportunity to work with big brands. Well, I mean, I think you're being very humble because you don't get afforded the opportunity. You have to somehow do something right. Maybe start by giving us what's the master secret of getting in on big brands as a consultant, especially as a solopreneur consultant, because big brands are not that easy to penetrate if you're a small or a micro business or a one-man business. They want to work with big brands. So what was your secret to get in there and start working with these brands?
yeah, no, great question. Great question. I mean, one of the first things is the old adage that everybody knows rings true is you won't get fired for bringing in one of the big four consultancies. These are the guys that I've been competing with my entire my entire kind of professional career. The big four consultancies, the huge management consultancies, professional services firms. What it ultimately comes down to, and whether you see this as a skill of entrepreneurship, whether you see this specifically around sales, whether you see this around negotiation, it doesn't really matter. But one of the core, again, tenets of being successful is your ability to, number one, make people aware of a problem, link that problem to a solution that you are inherently able to or skilled to provide and deliver on, and then actually make that happen. And I know that sounds kind of very simple and kind of very huge, but let me break some of these things down.
Yes, please.
One of the reasons, in my experience and through a lot of conversations I've had with new entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, the younger generations that I've been trying to coach and mentor slightly, has been people hear things like "do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life." So people immediately jump into things that either they're passionate about or that they enjoy or they like to do. And they think that if they can just do the thing that they like to do, they'll be happy, they'll be successful, and everything else. The problem is when you try and turn something into a business opportunity, a commercial endeavor, you want to set up your own business, you want to go out and brave the world on your own, you can't just do the thing you like to do. You have to convince other people that you can do the thing that you like that you like to do for them and for a shared outcome and for a shared vision. And this is the thing that probably trips up most solopreneurs. Um, there's stats that go around even across the business space, which is something like 98% of businesses go out of business in their first 12 months. And all it really comes down to is their inability to secure clients, paying customers in exchange for their services or products. And that's why sales becomes
So, that's probably the reason why Solo Say exists, is because we are there for people who are passionate about what they do. They chose a certain path and they are very good at what they do. They're the masters of their craft, but somehow they're struggling to pay the bills still. And so that's why we asking people like you and say, hang on, okay, you're busy doing what you love, but listen to people like Yousaf to actually say, how do you turn that into profit? How do you get in? How do you add value? And how do you get people to believe that you are the person to go to and to pay to get things done for them? Whether that's creating art or being a consultant or delivering something unique.
exactly, yeah. And I love that. And that's one of the things that I love so much about this solo say mission, which is, you touched on one of the points there, which is it doesn't really matter what the thing is. But again, everybody's heard of starving artists, or they think if you're passionate about something and something is in the arts and crafts kind of world, inherently kind of not doing well financially is kind of it's almost like the bitter pill that you've got to swallow in order to choose that as your life journey. But on the flip side, you've got artists that are selling paintings and selling their sculptures and selling their crafts for hundreds and millions of dollars. They're in the galleries, they're in the workshops, they're famous on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and those kind of things. And it's almost one of those things is you've got something that you're really good at. You first need to make people aware of it. And this is what some people will call lead generation, marketing, advertising. The core component is just you've got to make people aware of what you do and kind of why you're a little bit different. Um, to maybe make that a little bit more practical, and maybe again something that's rang true to me for a long time is a lot of solopreneurs complain that they are not being found, or they're not being no one's inquiring, or they're really impressed with the website that they put together and the business cards that they got printed, but now nobody's rushing to their website, nobody's booking calls with them, nobody's suddenly throwing heaps of cash at them. And the fundamental kind of logical step that it comes back to is, have you made someone aware of what you even do? Do people even know you exist? Do people even know what you can do? And until you can answer that question confidently and say, actually, yes, I've made efforts to make sure that people actually know who I am, what I do, the value I can provide, how I can help them, then you can almost tick that box. But until you've kind of made that first step, everything else is still just a dream. Everything else is still just a pipeline. How do you then go from, go on, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was then going to say the next kind of natural thing that people usually slip up on, um, again, from what I've seen, is that they've made some efforts to drive that awareness, to do some marketing, to write some posts on LinkedIn, to maybe even pay for some ads, those kind of things. The next element then becomes, is it good enough? It's a very, very competitive market out there. Everybody is screaming and shouting and dancing for the same eyeballs that you are. For every one of you, there's going to be 100 of us that are sending messages that same day, writing a post that same day, creating content that same day. And then it's your ability to almost set yourself apart from everybody else. If I just went into my, first 9, 10 years of career as another learning and development consultant, why should any business come to Yusuf with no track record as a young kid at the age of 23, 24, at that age with some bold ideas? Or should they be safer and more secure, and would they get more value from going to one of the big players with credibility, with history and those kind of bits? Um, and that's kind of like the other key element. So you've got to make people aware, and then you've just got to be brutally honest. Like, what sets you apart? Why should you get that share of eyeballs or attention or money from another client where you know other people are doing the same thing?
So if you're a solopreneur listening to this, ask yourself, what am I known for? So if and I think as Yusuf is saying, like ask yourself, if I say I am a good graphic designer, there are thousands and thousands of graphic designers out there. What is that thing that makes me special? And it could be, sometimes it could be that you are particularly good at this specific piece of graphic design, or that you specialize in a very specific context. So you're a great graphic designer for barbershops, and that's your niche. You help barbershops create amazing visuals. The more in today's economy, the more you specialize and are very clear about your niche, your differentiator, the more likely you are to succeed, especially as a solopreneur, because you simply cannot be everything for everybody. And people will trust you when they know that this is your craft, this is your niche, this is what you do day in and day out. That's what reduces risks for them, and that's why they want to do business with you. Yusuf, let's go through the SoloSay framework of skills. So we categorize our skills, or the model that we believe will work for solopreneurs, in four categories: shape, show, sell, and serve. Let's start with shape, and you've addressed this a little bit already. And shape is about our ability to put together and understand what is my offer to the market. So shape your offer. So I want to start with, how do you as Yousaf spot opportunities in the market? So how do you do research? How do you figure out that there is a gap in the market? I'm going to run out of that.
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. My tactic has been a bit of a shared one. So number one, it's I have a deep interest and a deep passion. So even when I'm not doing client work, I'm engaged in reading, researching, just human and business performance. That's been something that I've always found deeply interesting and fascinating, to the point where, I will sit and listen to business podcasts, on any long journey. I don't think I've listened to music in a very long time. Anytime I can get around that. And it's you've got to be an expert. You've truly got to be an expert, but through the eyes of a student. The same way students go to university, go to college, are engaged constantly in asking questions and finding out more and looking for the bits of things, bits of nuggets that they haven't uncovered yet. You've got to take that exact same approach. So although you're an expert, you've got to see yourself as a student of the game, a student of your craft, a student of your industry, and you've got to be able to arm yourself with the knowledge, with the understanding of what's coming down the line, what's important, and crafting that message. What I what I One of the approaches that I've always taken in terms of shaping my offer and kind of what I do is trying to think of, okay, who are the people that I want to serve, or who are the people within my ideal customer that have that I can have an interesting conversation with before we've even spoken about exchanging money. If I've got a if I've got a deep passion and an interest in graphic design, for example, I know that within a business, yes, there's the marketing department, because these guys are designing things, and they're crafting compelling advertising or social media and those kind of things. But you've also got middle management who have to design compelling stories and slide decks to update and motivate their teams. You've got senior directors that are putting together business updates and stakeholder updates or investor relations and those kind of things. So you've got so many different pockets of people that you can speak to about design, but you might be missing those opportunities with your offer if you're just doing the marketing approach. And this kind of comes back to that kind of differentiation bit, that yes, 99% of people in graphic design are trying to speak to the marketing manager and they want to help with producing those assets and those kind of things. But you've still got a hungry crowd of people that need good graphic design that are probably not getting hounded by the same volume of people asking the same volume of requests. And that should help kind of shape your offer. Who are the people that I can have an interesting conversation with within a business around the thing that I'm passionate about?
Okay. And so if you, once you've spotted an opportunity and you shaped an offer and say, okay, so this is what I have to offer for this opportunity. How do you define this? So how do you kind of put this in wording or a message to your target audience? What's the process that you go through to get to that point where your target audience can hear you speak what you do and know exactly, okay, that's for me or that's not for me?
Amazing question. So, a few years ago, this used to be far more difficult than it is now. And something I think we'll be sharing with
Are you going to
the
say just
solo
throw
side
it in
community
ChatGPT? Is that going
very
to be
soon.
your answer?
Not as simple as that. Not as
That's
simple as that.
confusing.
So again, there's a 101 and a 102 level. So the old version was, or the old playbook effectively was, you need to spend time with these people. Now, through things like I'm just doing market research, can I ask you 3 questions, 10 questions? And you can find out what are the things that your ideal customer are struggling with and what are the outcomes that they wish they had.
Yeah.
And then you can reverse engineer that into your actual offer, the deliverables, the work you're going to be doing, and those kind of things. Now with and kind of the next evolution of that then became just access to the internet, forums, communities. You could go on LinkedIn, you could go on Facebook, and you could find, you know, the graphic design community for a small town, or graphic designers in Dubai meetup, and there's probably 1,000 of those going on, every year. And you could have attended those events, and you could have just been around that kind of environment of those people where you're hearing and you're rubbing shoulders and you're having those conversations. The next evolution of that has then become AI. So now every single one of us has access to PhD, master, expert level knowledge and insights in our pocket. If we can access the internet, we have access to almost any information that's out there at scale. Now, the thing that trips people up is they think if I go in and just say, "Hey, ChatGPT, tell me one of the 10 most painful problems for my service or for this industry or for marketing managers within a company," they're going to get very lazy results. Like it's you're not really putting any deep effort into doing that. You're just saying, "Hey, give me the top 10 pain points," or "What do people want from me?" and those kind of things. Part of being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, part of taking charge of your own life is thinking, how can I make everything I do better, more detailed, better quality, higher value, those kind of things. So what I would actually be doing is, and you can find these types of prompts online or you can experiment.
Yeah.
But number one, be really, really clear about who your ideal customer is. So maybe a very quick tutorial here is step one, go into ChatGPT, ask it to interview you on what your skills or unique offering could even be. So this is if you know you want to be self-employed, but you don't know exactly what area you're in, or maybe you've got 2 or 3 different interests, ask ChatGPT to interview you to
It's a nice
uncover what
suggestion.
is your unique skill or your focus.
Yeah.
Once you've worked through that, and when I mean work through, like actually spend time doing this. Don't just take the first answer. Don't just look for the immediate reply and think, yeah, that's me. I'm going to run with this. That's my new business. So really interrogate and work with it. Once you now understand what your skill set is or what value you can provide to the market, then ask ChatGPT, who are the people that I should be speaking to around this unique skill or value that I can provide. So, who in the market would be the ideal customer for my set of skills or for my value proposition? Again, interrogate, work with ChatGPT, get really clear. If you've never worked in marketing before, but you're good at design or you like social media, just because you like social media and you're good at design does not automatically mean you're good enough to work within a marketing department. You have to understand the business of marketing or the business of your customer behind your skill, behind your craft, behind your art form.
Yeah.
Once you've then got your list of individual or ideal customers or your customer profile for your unique set of skills, your third prompt should then be something along the lines of, okay, what does this ideal customer, so if it's a marketing manager, if it's a HR manager, a learning and development, doesn't matter what that output is, but when you worked through it, then ask, give me the top 10 pain points of insert, job role or ICP in their language.
Mm.
And
Their
that's one of the
language. I
key
think that's an
things.
important part.
Um, Everybody can say the generic thing of, I'm going to help you make more money. I'm going to help you get better engagement. I'm going to help you blah, blah, blah. But it's especially when you're crafting your messaging, especially when you're crafting what sets you apart, it's your ability to connect with people in their eyes, in their inner voice almost. So if you can use the words of your customers, you're going to have a far better chance at number one, driving engagement and getting attraction towards what you're doing. But you'll also be able to craft your offer and your proposition far closer to what people actually need and actually want.
Right.
Another kind of really old school tactic I used to do when I used to advise software companies and tech companies from sales and go to market was I would go onto places like G2 Cloud, Product Hunt, all of these review sites for my competitors, and I would look at all of the negative reviews. This is the market leader in whatever industry, fintech, sales, didn't matter what the tech was. But I could go very easily and research on public review sites that are available online, your Glassdoor, your all of these review sites that we all know of, Google reviews, and just look at the negative reviews for my competitors or for people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing.
That is
So
smart.
pick a
That
big
gives you a
marketing
very
agency
good tip on where the gaps are and what people would like fixed. I like it.
because now you've got your customers that have worked with your competitors or worked with the same services that you're offering, and they're now telling you publicly what they wish was better or what was
Yeah.
missing. And even if you just focused on the thing that people were complaining about, you could build a very successful business because you're meeting the demand of customers. You're meeting the demand of what your ideal targets are telling you in their language. Um,
Okay. All right. So that's kind of shaping your solution and shaping your offer. So let's move on to show, which is kind of marketing. So how do you now broadcast to the market? So you know that this is my target audience, and I want to tell this target audience this is what I have. The first part that I'd like us to cover is kind of to start to build your presence in the right environment. So how would you go about it? What's the tips that you would give us and say, if you're starting out, if you've shaped your offer, this is how I recommend you go about building your presence. And I think you used the phrase earlier to say, let people know that you exist.
yeah. And that's what it comes down to, right? So there's something I heard and was taught a long time ago. I'm struggling to remember who it was so I can give them the creds for this. But it was something that's rang true to me is if you could go back in time, knowing what you know today about cryptocurrency, and you could convince, your mother, your father, your siblings, your best friends, knowing what you know today about the value of Bitcoin, for example, when it was down at a penny or a cent,
Yeah.
you wouldn't just send them an email. You wouldn't just send them one message or kind of tentatively put something out there. you would absolutely hound them, like in a positive way. Like if you knew truly something valuable that could benefit someone close to you with this unique insight that you've got, you wouldn't just, oh, hey mom, I think you should look at Bitcoin, or hey, I this could be good. You'd go in with it with a level of authority and passion and just fuel that, this is something I know to be true. This is how I'm going to do it. And that I think is a lot of people miss having that energy in their voices, in their copywriting, in their messaging. They miss that energy. Like they just kind of everything kind of looks a little bit vanilla.
That's
Um,
great. Let me paraphrase that, because I think this is a very worthwhile nugget for people to take home. So if you've developed an offer and you truly believe that this offer is valuable to people, then put out messaging that reflects that true belief. That, I mean, I am absolutely convinced that if I do X and Y for you, that you will get these and these benefits. Please believe me. I know that you should have this. I know that you need this. So that energy, so if you put that energy into how you craft your communication, that energy will land in the eyes and in the ears of your customer. Thank you. I think that's a really cool tip.
I love that. And then the next one is like, now that you've hopefully got the energy behind your messaging right, and you've made it almost convincing, or you've made it attractive enough, the next element is actually then deploying that message or distributing that message or actually getting it out there. Now, there are only really two ways of communicating any message. It's either one to one, so like how Vinny and I are having this conversation now, we're one on one having this conversation, but equally, this message is going to be broadcasted one to many. Within those two kind of branches, there are then a number of kind of, call it, tactics or ways or methods that you can do this.
Yeah.
So if it's one to one, you can pick up the phone and just cold call people. You can email people. You can DM people and message people online. You can text and WhatsApp and the rest of it. But you can also send people messages or postcards or letters, direct mail. You can send someone a gift. You can go and approach someone in the street with something unique. So you've kind of got to think about all of the available ways that are possible to you. Everybody kind of defaults to what's the easiest, but equally that then becomes the hardest to break through. And the big part about distributing your messages, now that you're super clear about the value and how you can help somebody else, it is your responsibility. You should feel compelled to do everything in your power to make sure that people are actually hearing your message. So don't just do the lazy thing. Don't just send a message. Don't just email. Don't just, copy and paste a script. Don't just, follow and fumble your words on the phone because you're trying to convince someone to buy with you, or to let them know you exist. Think about all of the channels that are available to you to get a message out there. I've seen everything from people wearing bright pink t-shirts with QR codes and just saying, scan this for something fun. And people literally, I've seen them walking down the marina, chasing someone with their camera, trying to scan. And what does it turn into? It turns into, a product or someone selling something or whatever it is. But this is getting eyeballs. It's 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 thinking about kind of viral moments in real life. It's sending someone, a handwritten letter that you've actually taken the time to write out. It's buying a coffee voucher, for 5 dirhams or 10 dirhams or whatever it is, and sending that to someone that you want to have a conversation with. It's your ability and your responsibility, not in just finding the value that you can provide others and then crafting an offer around that, but then actually making sure people hear that and people, have actually landed with that message.
Another one of the skills that fall in the category of show or marketing.
One of the other skills with awareness or
Yeah, okay.
uh,
One of the other skills in the category of show or marketing is the ability to build community around you, and especially for solopreneurs, because we have to niche ourselves into a specific community or a target audience. One of the most effective ways to build reliable income and income stream is to capture a specific audience, or to build a network or build a community around what it is that I do, what I'm involved in. Do you have some practical tips for us? How, because I've seen that you've built a really good community on your social. So what are the tips? And I don't want a social media rehash kind of masterclass. I want to hear what are Yousaf's specific tips of what do you do and what's worked for you to build community around around your specific offer.
I think one of the key things that people forget, especially online, and this has again been one of the things that I've tried to emulate as much as possible in my social presence, has been we're still talking to people. Yes, it's an icon with an image, or it's a group of icons, and people are commenting and liking, and they're throwing up thumbs and those kind of things. But you're still speaking to real people, right? So my focus has always been, whether it's 10 people in a group online, whether it's 100 people in a group online, whether it's a community that already exists, I try and remember that these are real people I'm speaking to. And imagine that I'm actually stood face to face, or stood in a room, or stood at a networking event, actually talking to them. And would I just say the thing that I'm going to type out, or would I actually lean in a different way? How would I show emotion? How would I actually offer something of value or presence? If someone's cracked a joke, or I've seen something funny in something, you'd usually acknowledge, or people would be able to see that in person. So let them see it online as well. Don't just go in wanting to be the voice that's heard, but try and hear the voices that are going on around you, and hear what's going on in the community. And your ability to listen to individuals one on one, to small groups or small teams, and even large communities, your ability to listen and be present, often gets underlooked. And that's what my focus specifically has never been around kind of volume. It's never been around kind of trying to create viral moments and those kind of things. You'll never find me dancing on Instagram or LinkedIn or anything like that. Not yet, anyway. I
Come on,
should
I'm
never say
looking
never.
forward to it, Yousaf.
But it's always been around, how would I respond in real life? What would I say if this person was stood face to face to me? If I've heard someone announce something or say something, or at an event in person where I'm walking through the city centre or whatever it is, how would I respond and how would I react? And what value can I leave them with? So one of the lessons from my grandfather, he's shaped a lot of my life, has always been, you should always leave people better than you found them. And I often find that a lot of people don't do that online. The online game tends to be, I'm going to be the loudest voice, or I want to be the most intelligent person, or I want the most engagement or the most likes and those kind of things. Nobody's thinking. When I hit post, or when I comment, or when I reply, how am I leaving the person better than when I came across them, or I found them? And that's been the one thing for me. So it's not in my opinion, it's never been about quantity. It's about quality of interaction. We hear things like authenticity and real relationships and those kind of things. Authenticity comes from being authentic. Like it's kind of it's in the name.
I hear you, and I definitely have seen this in your LinkedIn post, for example. So those of you who want, please go and have a look at Yousaf's LinkedIn profile. Please follow him as well. We'll put it in the description in the YouTube channel, and you will see that every post that he makes has value. And so it's not just let me promote or punt or sell or whatever. There's a valuable contribution. You're either going to learn something new or get closer to understanding something and so on. So yeah, I think that's you've definitely lived that practically in what I've seen on your social feed. Okay, so Let's move on to category 3 around sales. And I want to go very specific to the topic of pricing. So you are in a consulting market where an hourly rate can be anything from $20 an hour to $20,000 an hour. How do you position or find your position and space of where you price yourself as a consultant?
So this is again an amazing question, and I made a lot of mistakes around this early on in my entrepreneurship journey. I looked at the market and I looked at what everybody else was doing, or I kind of I my pricing was based on less on what I felt I was worth or what I should be, any kind of there wasn't any maths or any workings out. It was literally kind of looking at what everybody else was doing, and then trying to just adopt the same thing because I thought that's what everybody did. What I later found out was, and if I can help even one person with this piece of advice, because it's been so life changing for me over the last few years, which is you need to start with the outcome that you're trying to build and try and be clear about this. You can change, you can pivot, you can change your mind. That's absolutely fine. But before you get into how you price yourself or how you price your services, you need to understand what are you building and why. So if you want a lifestyle business, you only want to work 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, you want to take 4 days off every single day and those kind of things, you have to, number one, then understand what that kind of business would give you. So are you then working for short-term small engagements in a very dense populated market? You then have to be kind of defined by what your peers are doing or what your competitors are doing. And there's nothing wrong with charging hourly, and that's probably or even day rates and those kind of things. That's probably the easiest um, sales pricing model there is. People just they understand hourly wages, they understand monthly costs, they understand what it would cost to employ someone versus hire a short-term consultant or a freelancer or solopreneur. That's usually the easiest place to start and the easiest pricing to kind of get over the line. One of the issues that then that presents is that you are then anchored by the number of hours or the number of days that you work or deliver for that client. So even before we get into specifics of whether you're charging $100 a day or $100,000 a day, you're limited by your ability to produce outputs based on the number of days or the number of hours that you work. But that's absolutely fine if you're happy, working in that way. People like me and people like Billy and a lot of the other kind of people that I'm around, they don't want to be, charging per hour. They don't want to be charging per day. They don't want to be anchored by time as their ceiling to grow a business or to earn higher revenues and those kind of things. And then the only other option you have is your ability to compare and contrast the value that you can provide with your set of skills and services to the outcome that the client will receive. What do I mean by that? You might, or the market might charge $50 for a logo. The outcome that that logo is providing for your customer or for your ideal customer should be far more than $50. But it's your ability to articulate and draw lines between your skill set in terms of the effort and the creativity and the messaging and the branding behind the logo that you've created, and its ability to provide the ideal outcome for your customer. And it's going one step further. It's building your pricing based on the outcomes that your customers will get as a percentage value of that. So you might think $10,000 for a logo is expensive, but if I told you that logo was Gymshark's logo, and it's powered their entire brand, which is worth $1 billion plus, and they've just been acquired, and they're in every world, and they're running events and this that. You'd think $10,000 for a logo is cheap, and it's how you anchor the value of what you do to the outcome that you're trying to build for the customer. One of the running things is people don't buy or pay for solutions; they buy and pay for outcomes. And it's your ability to anchor yourself and the work that you do in outcomes rather than in hourly or daily or kind of time bound metrics.
So again, if I try to paraphrase, so if I'm making a proposal to a client and say, hey, I'm going to create a logo for you and it's going to cost you $10,000, and the client says, but hang on, there are 1,000 other people that will create a logo for me for $50. Just what will be my response? How do I position this and say, hang on, I will charge you $10,000 because.
Then you might have to flip it differently. So if you're, and this comes back to the value and the confidence piece, and I'll get on to the reply bit, but
Yeah.
it's if I am confident that this logo is actually valuable and will give the customer the outcome that I believe they want, you can then anchor your pricing in different ways. So one is performance-based or contingency pricing, which is I won't charge you anything for the logo today, but every time the logo is used or every time the logo sells something or it's displayed in a certain way, I want a 5% commission or contingent off the back of that.
Okay,
It's
I'm going to ask you to re-answer this question because I'm kind of driving to a specific point.
okay.
So, because you made the point, actually, I want you to re-emphasize. You made the point that if I'm if I'm pitching that this is a $10,000 logo, I have to show you that there's social proof, maybe that, hang on, I happen to be the person who designed the Gymshark logo and the Nike logo, and look at how. So it's one thing to just create the logo, it's another thing to really understand the psychology. So I bring the psychology of visuals and everything together, and all of these things together is a much more, my logo is much more likely to actually get stuck in people's minds and so on. So I'm building up the value of why you should pay me 10,000 and not $50,000. So can you re-answer that question in something
Yeah.
along these lines? Okay, we'll cut
So
that. So yeah, go for it.
yeah, no, it's a brilliant question. What it comes down to is your ability to show and anchor why your version of this logo creation for $10,000 is valuable. What credibility, what proof, what story can you tell around it? If I presented that client and said, I've worked with Gymshark and this is the logo I created and this is the effort and my process around this. This is the Nike logo I created. This is a new startup that's just blown up overnight and they're now worth $1 million or $100 million. The anchor is in that story and that proof and that compelling approach that you've taken versus just the freelancer or the $50 logo that somebody's creating. They're just selling a logo, something that looks nice on a page, hopefully. What you're selling is the building of a business and a brand that's worth exponentially more than just what the artwork looks like. Um,
Fantastic. That's exactly a good point. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to ask you a question about closing the deal. Right.
mm,
So you've been a guru in sales for many years, Yousaf, and closing a deal is probably that one, probably elusive skill that not all of us really understand. Give us the Yousaf Khan 3 steps or 5 steps or 3 or 5 tips of closing a deal, getting a client to commit and say, yay, let's go.
it's again very interesting. I'm not going to do what most of the sales gurus do and give you the word for word script and the objection handling closers and the how you dodge people's questions and those kind of things. Again, it just comes down to the whole journey we've kind of been on over this conversation, right? What is the customer's words? What is their pain? What can you do for them? What's the outcome your customer will receive as a result of this? How are you anchoring the value and the price and the cost based on the outcome that you're going to provide? And can you give them, what confidence or credibility can you give them? If you don't have social proof, can you give them a guarantee? Can you say, if I don't deliver X outcome in X time period, you get a full money back guarantee, or I will work for you for free for 10 hours, or whatever it is until that thing's been done. But you can only really get to the point where you craft compelling closers when you've kind of done all of the other bits properly. And that's kind of been my approach, which has been um, clarify why the person is there and why you're even speaking in the first place. So what either brought them to be aware of you, or why did your message stick out to them? What was that thing that, clarify why you're even at the point of closing, or why you're even at the point of proposing a solution. Very simply, almost label and summarize their words of what they have told you they either want to achieve or what they're struggling with. What are their words that they said to you, you know, uh, in the last conversation, literally replay their exact words to you. Then you need to draw direct lines between the value that you bring through your skill, through logo creation, training creation, consulting, it doesn't matter what it is, their words, and clarifying why they approached you. So what does that look like? I'm going to stitch this together slightly. It's, hey, Willem, you told me you reached out on LinkedIn because you saw my post around human performance systems. When we spoke in our first conversation, you said you're doing a lot of great performance management activity, but you're not actually seeing people's performance increase. You told me that you don't think that they have enough time to apply these skills or to practice in a safe environment. The way I've crafted my approach is to make sure that one of the biggest things that we're going to focus on is making sure people actually just have a safe environment to practice and to play and to get comfortable with this. And we'll then, once we've found those safe moments of play and safe moments of practice, we will then go through the performance management system and find those pinpoint ideas. So my $5,000 day rate that you're going to pay me isn't just to deliver you this performance management system, it's to increase the performance of all of your team. You told me if we just increased performance by 10% for every single person in your team, 10% sounds tiny, but you've got 10 people in your team. That's 100% collective increase, which to you is worth $100,000 every day. Are you telling me my $5,000 investment upfront is not worth the $100,000 you're going to see at the end? And it's how you can chain that story across, anchoring what is important to the customer, what is the unique solution or value that you can provide them, overviewing, their pain and their what they want as an outcome, and then anchoring your value and your price in the customer's outcome and in the customer's value that they will get as a result of working with you.
Great answer. Thank you. I love that. And let's go on to the last category, which is serve. Uh, and let's start with project management, or maybe in the context of solopreneurs, task management. How do you get yourself organized? How do you make sure that you deliver what you promised to your clients? What's the just practical stuff? What do you do?
Very, very interesting question. So it's I'm gonna maybe go back to the start before I come back to the kind of the end output or goal element. And the reason for this is you and I will remember a conversation we had with a new budding entrepreneur that had just landed in Dubai a couple of months ago at the L&D networking event that we were at. This young man was very excited, very engaged, very very excited, very engaged, very passionate about wanting to start a business, um, helping companies get better at sales training or client engagement. My first question to him was, you're a 19, 20-year old, you're very excited, you're very fresh. What's your experience in sales? How many people have you, sold to? Have you got any great experience? What would be what what realistically and how realistically would someone trust you with your ability to elevate their sales in their team if you've never really done it yourself? And that comes down to that ability to serve, which is, if you can't do the thing yourself, or you haven't done the thing yourself, and you don't have the experience and you don't have any proof, that's where it all starts from. Like, a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome, and in my opinion, imposter syndrome just comes from not being prepared or not having the confidence in your ability to deliver because you've never done it before, or because you've not done it in that circumstance, or you've not done it in that way. So as soon as you align your words and your promises and your actions to your ability to deliver on those things and being honest, it's not about having the right answers, but it's around being honest and having the right approach. I know tomorrow, if an investor came to me and said, Yousaf, here's $10 million, go and start a professional consulting firm in the AI space, I know I could go and do that because I've done that over the last 10 years without any investment. But if Vili came to me and said, I'd like you to set up a university, here's $10 million, he trusts me based on my credibility and my experience and my ability to articulate the work that I've done. But I've never worked in the education sector. I've never set up an education institution. I've never set up a university. So then it comes back to humility and trust. I should be open enough to say, hey, Vili, look, love the opportunity and thank you for coming to me. And I'm glad we got to this point, but I've never done this before. Now, there are two ways that conversation can go. Either, if you trust in me for whatever reason, I will figure it out. And I will try and do my best to get you to the point where we've built a university and we've built the institution the way you want it. Or it's saying, look, I need to humbly decline. I love the fact that you brought me this opportunity and that I can work with you and that you want to work with me on this. But I can't do, the grand vision that you have in mind. But maybe I can just help you with this 5% here or 10% here. When you're looking at something to do with design, or when you're looking at something to do with messaging or copywriting, I can maybe help you with some of those. But I can't, help you with finding a site and building it and meeting the regulations and doing all of those kind of bits, because I've never done that. And this is one of the things that unfortunately a lot of the market from what I see, get wrong, is they think the whole job is just to convince someone to give them cash or just to transfer funds. That's when the work starts. Like, the work hasn't even happened yet. You've first got to convince and convince in a not in a manipulative way, but in an honest, value matching way. Like, you've first got to find a problem that someone has, match that problem with something you can do, or you can figure out how to do within your sphere of influence, control, and skill. You then convince them or close the deal and get them to agree to exchange um, cash or money in exchange for your services. Then the work actually starts, and then you've got to deliver the thing. And the amount of reputations that I've seen get destroyed, get diminished, get ridiculed and disappear overnight because they've managed to do the upfront convincing bit, but not the hard work, actually delivery bit, is, they come across so often. And that's why my whole stance around work and entrepreneurship and business in any endeavor that I've been in has always been around, what can I actually do? What am I confident in and what do I have the proof that I've done before promising it. Um,
So don't
and if it
take
gets to
on
the point,
something that you're not confident that you're going to deliver on at
no,
the level of excellence.
exactly. And I mean,
And then
I was going to make this practical maybe at the early part of my journey. So when I was more in the learning and development performance arena, my customers would come to me and say, we need e-learning content or we need video content. You're doing the consulting, but we also then need the training content itself. Now that was never my skill set. I'm a very unique person that I can even make Canva templates look bad. Like that's how bad at design I am. But what I did was I then openly said to the client, look, hey, I'm brilliant at this, and this is the part of the project that I will work on. But here's a partner, an employee, an associate that I can bring in. So just because you can't do something doesn't almost mean you've lost the opportunity and you can't help them. But it's just being honest and aware enough to say, okay, who can I speak to? Who can I partner with? Who can I form alliances with that can help me deliver this thing as a complete solution that the client wants? And that's the other element. It's not just about saying no and turning people away. It's just being honest and open to your network, to your relationships, to other people in the market, and saying, hey, here's an opportunity that I've got. I can only do 60% of it, but I need some specialist support in the other 40%. I want to bring you in and help me deliver on this. This is the part, or this is the slice of the pie that I'm going to give you for part of this deal. And I guarantee I'm yet to come across any partner that's turned down a free opportunity to kind of work for a client or for a new project.
you made me think of another question to ask you, actually. And it's again something very practical that I think a lot of us face all the time. When a client asks me to do something and I either don't have the capability or the skill or I don't have the capacity to do it, when do I decide to kind of subcontract it? In other words, I still keep it under my business and I say to the client, okay, yes, I can do this, or my company can do it, versus bringing in a partner, which means that, my client is exposed to somebody else. So what, because both approaches are valid, right? And so in your case, when do you decide to bring in a partner versus subcontracting and bringing in a specialist under you?
I think it depends again on the outcome that you're trying to build. So my outlook has always been I used to have very grand dreams of building a huge business, having an office in a skyrise tower, having a team of 50 people underneath me, being the CEO, kind of old archetype CEO that you see. Um, what I found is over the years, I've employed probably around 12 people in total. What I actually found is I don't enjoy the human management leadership part of running a business. I just enjoy doing cool stuff and having cool conversations and doing the work that I enjoy doing. So for me, early on, if you want to manage and bring people under you and you want to grow a big team, more power to you. And but one of the things that you'll need to understand is, and one of the skills that you will need to build is your ability to manage, lead, orchestrate other human beings or other people underneath you to help deliver this thing.
And manage a
One
payroll.
caveat and payroll, and one point I will put around that as well is though that it's no, one of the mistakes I made very early on when I hired my first few people and thought I was being successful as an entrepreneur was I thought other people were going to work just as hard as me. I thought people I'm employing will also want to work 12, 14 hours days and they'll work on the weekends and they'll figure things out on their own and those kind of things. You have to understand that whether you're employing someone, bringing associates or assistants in, whether you're even just subcontracting out to other agencies or other freelancers and other solopreneurs, no, you can never expect anyone, and you should never expect anyone to bring your level of passion, your level of standards and quality to the work that you're doing. Um, And that's one of the mistakes I made early on. So if you see yourself as a 10 out of 10 in your skill or your discipline, just assume that technically the person might be far better than you are. They might be a 20 out of 10 in their ability to create logos or graphic design. But the hours and the mental energy that they'll be willing to expel for a salary versus your ownership is going to be very, very different. And that will determine how you manage those people. I lean on the more kind of professional agreement space where I will bring in other partners, other companies, other agencies, and I will give them defined deliverables. And I will set the margins, the contracting, the pricing, the payment terms, and everything else. The benefit with that is I'm not you're still speaking with and working with people at the end of the day. I'm not trying to get away. But then it's almost like you are a business entity and you have things that are important to you, and you're working with another business entity, usually the business owner, and they will be just as excited and passionate and driven as you are to deliver for your clients as they are to deliver for you for your clients. And it's that kind of dynamic. There's not a right and wrong answer. Like there are pros and cons to both of those, but that's the angle that I lean on.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up with a story. Do you have a funny anecdote or something from your journey so far that you want to share with us?
Um, I have a few. Let me think of one that's maybe safe for work. So one of I'd say one of the funniest stories I had was, and this is going back to the early days of kind of lead generation when I was still very green. I would just set up my business and did those types of things. I actually saw something funny on a TV show called Suits. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they said, and it's American based, so it's all American law and those kind of things. But the funny scene was that there was a somebody was suing kind of the main character in Suits, Harvey and Mike. And one of the ways that they do this is they have to formally in person present the lawsuit to the person, and they say, you've been served or whatever it is. Now, usually the way people get around, or kind of what they depict is the way people get around from this is they just say that person isn't here, they don't exist, blah blah blah, and then kind of the lawsuit goes back through other channels, and you get more time and those kind of things. But the crafty way that the guy dressed up like a takeaway delivery guy. He had a pizza box. He walked into the office and he said, "Oh, pizza for Harvey Specter." And they said, "Oh yeah, here. He's here." And then he opened it and he said, "You've been
Uh,
served. You've got a lawsuit."
yes.
What I did with that was kind of sneaky as well. Was I wrote a letter out and put it in a pizza box, and I sent it to clients that I was working with. So I made a list of clients that I wanted to work with. I wrote out this handwritten note, put it in an empty pizza box. Made sure the pizza box was clear and clean. I threw on
Was
a just
wasn't a
a
used greasy
it
box, right?
wasn't a it wasn't a used greasy box. No, I mean that would have been funny as well. But I put on a cap, put on a like a takeaway delivery uniform,
Yeah.
some kind of scrappy joggers, and I'd walk into clients' offices and I'd say, "Hey, I've got a pizza for Mike, or I've got a pizza for John, or
Yeah.
delivering a pizza for the HR team." So I didn't even knew who the people were sometimes.
Nice.
But who isn't going to accept a free pizza, or who isn't?
Yes.
We talk about gatekeepers and getting past
Yeah.
receptionists and those kind of things. Like, it's those kind of things. Now, I thought I was really slick and cool and funny and this kind of thing. Let me just admit, it didn't work. I just upset a lot of people. A lot of people were expecting pizzas. And I
Uh,
got phone calls
you
from
forgot to
people
include
thinking
the actual pizza.
it was just an A4 piece of paper with my face and number on it saying, "Hey, I'd love to have a chat and a pizza with you." Or I
Okay.
think the funny line that I wrote of it was, "Can I get a pizza your time?" Like,
Yes.
can I get a piece of your time? It
Okay.
it didn't work. It fell on its face. I got emails and phone calls from people saying, "Hey, Yusuf, just to let you know, you got us really excited with the pizza box, but we're never going to work with you because now you've upset the whole office. So now you owe us 10 pizzas or whatever it was.
Yes.
But again, it's that was the funny thing that I
Okay,
remember.
that's a nice story. I like it. And I suppose if you think about what you taught us earlier in the podcast, is it's about value. So you kind of went into the sales mode without delivering value. If you
Yeah,
included the actual pizza,
yeah,
there would have been value offered, and if they received some value, they would have been more open to consuming the rest of your message.
exactly that.
Okay.
And again, this is the direct mail strategy, or they call it bulky mail strategy. So how do you send something unique and bulky face to face or present it? And one strategy that has worked every single time I've done it is sending customers a box of chocolates with a handwritten card somewhere inside, or on the envelope saying, "Hey, look, this is a sweetener." And again, you can play on words into your ability to be a little, funny and those kind of things. But it's like, "Hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Here's a sweetener. Just give me, as long as it takes you to finish this box of chocolates, give me a conversation on the phone. I'd just love to have a conversation." And that has worked every single time. So don't try and fool people and trick people with free pizza. Give them real
The
value or real
pizza.
chocolates. Yeah. And then hopefully they'll come and have a
Okay.
conversation with you at least.
So finally, share your favorite quote with us. What is there a quote that inspires you or that anchors you in your life and in your career?
There are a few. The one I'm probably going to go with is from James Clear, Atomic Habit, just because I think it honestly speaks to almost every circumstance and almost everything that has ever brought me any kind of success in my life. So the quote is from James Clear from Atomic Habits: "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." To give you a practical kind of analogy of what that means is, everybody who goes to the Olympics has the same goal. Everybody that does anything has the same goal. They want to be successful, they want to get the gold medal, they want to do whatever it is. But the ones that win, when you actually research them and look into them, they actually have the best systems and practices of how they got there. How are they training? What's their diet like? What's their sleep like? What's their mental health and conditioning like? There is so much that goes into being um, ready to succeed. It's not just about having a great goal, it's about building a process and building a system. For everybody listening here, especially for the junior solopreneurs, something as simple as, and I love this one as well, but something as simple as every single day, make sure you get 20 no's. So one of the ways I want to make this really practical for some of maybe the junior solopreneurs or the budding guys that are just starting out is, especially from a sales or from a conversational point of view of letting people know about your stuff and bringing that awareness, the system that you can very easily deploy within your business, and I guarantee will give you success if you follow this through, is make it your first and only priority every single day, just to get 20 no's. Get 20 people to tell you they're not interested, they don't like what you're selling, they don't understand what it is. Just every single day, make sure you've spoken to 20 people, but your goal isn't here to sell them and get a customer and those kind of things. Your target is you want 20 people to say no to you. And that will help you build better messaging, better compelling insights. It will help you with the fear of rejection. And everybody gets scared of putting themselves out there. But it comes down to, what is the feedback? For you, success will be get your 20 no's every single day. And that to you should make you feel fulfilled that you've done a core primary action that will help take you forward.
Makes a lot of sense, yes. Okay, so let's go and get 20 goals per day. 20 no's per day. Thank you.
20 no's per day.
All right, Yusuf, thank you so much for volunteering to be a Solo Say legend and sharing your tips and tricks and years of experience with us. I'm sure people will find this very useful. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future and generating more content and sharing more useful information and tips. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. No, no, thank you so much. And to all of the guys listening and all the guys joining the Solo Say arena, like you are in the best hands possible with Vili. Like Vili personally has been a mentor, an uncle, a friend. You know, he's given me so much advice and reflection over the years. Like everything Vili does is for the net benefit and value of everybody else, which is why, you know, bringing people like me on, you know, we're willing to give Vili this time and produce this content and help him with this because he's done so much for us. And I would say try and be more like Vili, and you'll be successful at whatever you do.
Thank you so much, Yousaf. Appreciate it.
No,